Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors like we always do. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. I really think you should try them out. So take the next 3 minutes, just listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors, particularly ones that you're not using. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Make sure you mention the podcast, vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, the Hometown team is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. hometownticketing.com. We'd like to thank Gipper for their support. You know, your student athletes are on social media, so are a lot of their parents. And if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thank you to Ohio University and their online master's in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others. And it was a great experience, very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. For more information, go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We'd like to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, rosters, results. Their athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. For more information, go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We want to say thank you to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. Sidelineinteractive.com. We'd like to say thank you to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. You know, athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And having that positive information is incredibly valuable, especially when you're meeting with a frustrated parent, maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. athleticsurveys.com. And we want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. But when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our kids loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. It's a back to college episode, and we're going to be visiting today with Kristy Bayer. She is the Director of Athletics at Rockhurst University, has a tremendous background. We're going to hear about that. She was an All-American athlete. She's a record-setting coach, has again, a tremendous record as an athletics administrator at the college level. Kristy, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you. And I'm honored to be selected to participate in this podcast. I was really excited when I saw your message come through.
Oh, no, absolutely. And again, it's very selfish on my part. I'm only looking for great guests. I saw your profile on LinkedIn and said, boy, we got to get her on the podcast. Let's go ahead and get started. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up, maybe take us up through your own high school and college career, because it's pretty darn impressive. And then we'll take a break. But what's the Kristy Bayer story?
Yeah. So, I came from a big athletics family. My grandpa was a legendary football and baseball coach and eventually became an athletic director at the college level at Albion College. And so Division III in Michigan. And so my youth was kind of growing up and seeing him in that role as an athletic director and then on that campus at Albion College. And then, my family, my dad played baseball in college. My uncles were high school football coaches, very successful high school football coaches in Michigan. And a lot of my cousins played college sports. So I really grew up in, that sports family. And of course, growing up as a young girl, I played all the sports. And, when I started, soccer was my big sport. And so when I started playing competitively, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for women. Or for girls. So you need to think that's in the 90s, the late 80s, early 90s. And there wasn't, all the travel teams that we see now and all the activity for soccer. You just didn't see that back then. So I actually played with the boys. And so, definitely toughened me up. I can say that. So, soccer was my main sport growing up, but I played volleyball, played basketball in high school, and I was actually an ice hockey player. And so I played a lot of hockey. And again, back then, women's hockey, girls hockey was not, super popular. It just became an Olympic sport at the time. When I was growing up, but it wasn't very popular. So again, we had a girls team, but we played against the boys. And being from Michigan, we traveled a lot to Canada to play other girls teams. And so, just kind of a childhood full of sports. And, my job when I was growing up, I was a hockey official as a young girl. And so if you want to talk about throwing your child to the wolves and getting some tough skin, be a young female hockey official, and that definitely would toughen you up. So, so then after that, just kind of, trying to figure out what I wanted to do in college. I knew I wanted to be a college athlete and got some, interest for soccer and realized I just hated running, and in soccer, all you do is run. And not only do you run during the games, but in practices, but before practice, you do a 45-minute run just to run. So I thought, no, I don't want to do that in college. And so I was blessed to be recruited by Dan Scanlon at Grand Valley State University and had the most amazing college experience there. So that's kind of what my path that led me into the college world and my first exposure to college athletics.
All right, we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, I got to ask this. You mentioned there weren't a lot of opportunities back then for girls teams. I'm guessing, youth
Mhm.
and junior high, et cetera. So you're playing with the boys, sometimes alongside, sometimes against them. Um,
Mhm.
at that age, say that junior high-ish age, the physical, differences, height and weight and strength often are not manifested. So were you in
Mhm.
there? I mean, what was that like? The boys team saw you skating across, or you're taking somebody into the boards. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you remember from those years?
Well, especially in soccer, I mean, if you look at me now, you wouldn't believe it, but I was one of the biggest ones out there. And, at that age, girls kind of mature a little bit faster. So I was super strong at that age too. So, and, I just kind of had a kind of a really, really aggressive mentality. And so, I don't think the boys took that too well. And so yeah, it was definitely every game there was some drama. But I don't know if I were to continue. Eventually, as I got into high school, there were more opportunities for girls, and I think once you get to high school, the physicality changes between the genders. But definitely in those early years, I was definitely roughing them up.
All right, the officiating experience. I'm
Yeah,
high school and college official.
yeah.
Track and basketball. I think they in youth basketball is crazy, but I think little league is probably even worse. But people don't talk about hockey. I got to imagine hockey's parents and got to be
They were
some of the
so bad.
worst around. What are some of your memories as a hockey official as a kid?
Yeah, they were so bad. Upon reflection, if you think, and I was 12, 13 years old, young girl out there officiating hockey games. Upon reflection, as I look at it now as an adult, I can't believe, some of the ways that these grown people, spoke to not only this young girl out there officiating hockey. And it just goes to show, I mean, that's why we have a problem right now, is the way that younger officials are being treated. And every time I've got kids, every time I go to a game and I see parents yelling at these young officials out there, I was like, please stop, because I can't find any officials at the college level because of this. Like, I'm having problems, because these young officials are stopping out because of the way they're being treated.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's high school, it's college, it's youth.
Hmm.
Um, I do a presentation periodically for athletic directors, and sometimes there's some coaches in the room too. And I'll ask them, what is your, as ADs, what's your line in the sand for your coach's behavior? And like I said, I'm a basketball referee. I'll say, is it, hey, you missed that. Come on, that guy traveled. Oh, they're killing us. You got to call it both ways. Or the next level, come on, you're really killing us. And then it's throwing clipboards and things like that. So I'll just ask them, what's your line in the sand? Because whatever it
Hmm.
is, your coach is going to do that. Okay. And if it's shut up and coach your kids, that's what your coach is going to do. And ironically, this, the fans and the players, they're going to follow that coach's lead. Whatever that head coach does, that's what they're going to do. So
Hmm.
I'm always curious to hear what their line in the sand is. Mm.
Yeah, and so I'm a former coach. I was a longtime coach. So I would be hypocritical for me to say don't ever talk to the officials and just coach your team, because that is that is not the way I coached. So I 100% think it's okay to question, to be passionate, to get an explanation. I always feel like it's okay to get an explanation. Where it crosses the line is, an increased voice inflection, poor language, throwing things, close physical space is definitely a no. So I feel like once it gets to that second tier, then there's issues. But 100%, I think it's okay to ask and question calls.
Oh no, and as official, I had no problem with
Yeah.
a head coach saying, hey, what'd you see out there? Or, hey, you didn't call that the
Hmm.
last time. I'm fine
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
conversation, but I'm not going to take anything off of an assistant. I'll tell that head coach, tell that assistant to shut up, or you're getting a T.
Yeah.
Uh,
Too many voices chirping is yeah, not a good thing.
all right, I love it. For our listeners, we're visiting today with
Mhm.
Kristy Bayer. She's a longtime coach, longtime AD. We're going to take our first break, but when we come back, we're going to hear about her incredible coaching career that helped lead to her current positions. Let's take that break. We're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support of the podcast. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all their different events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. They're also great ways to share your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank our good friends at Hometown Ticketing. Hometown's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, the Hometown team is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. Go to hometownticketing.com. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast, hometownticketing.com.
Hey, Jake, I was just looking and, we use hometown ticketing as well. And, we switched to digital ticketing a couple years ago. And, they were the first vendor that we looked at. So I believe we're on year 2 and 3 with them. So we
Oh,
do
well,
appreciate their service.
oh gosh, thanks for sharing that. Uh,
Hmm.
just one quick question. As you did that, as you onboarded the new program, with coaches and
Hmm.
fans and students, um, I've talked to a number of high schools that have gone through the same thing and a couple of colleges. How was that experience for you of, transitioning from, cash to online ticketing?
Yeah, the process was much appreciated by our fans, on the final product. And, of course, anytime that you move from one process to another, you just have to get, everybody on board, on your campus and just get that communication plan out strong. But once we were able to do that, I know our fans greatly appreciate the digital ticketing aspect, and it also helps, with our check-in in our entryway during games. Once it's game time, our fans are able to seamlessly come into the gym having already pre-ordered their ticket as opposed to stopping before they find their seats.
Oh, yeah. Again, you're absolutely right. And thanks
Mm.
again for sharing that. For our
Mhm.
listeners, our guest today is Kristy Bayer. She is the director of athletics at Rockhurst University. Before we hear about that, Kristy, you were sharing, you had a very successful high school and college career, a record-setting college career. Um, then you got into coaching. So how was that, just a seamless transition from player to coach, or how did it, was it a surprise? How did that all come to be?
No, and I think, you have to go back to my college career to kind of understand, why I chose the coaching path. And so I played at Grand Valley State University, and I'm really excited. This weekend is homecoming at Grand Valley, and so me and all my teammates are going back, and we go back every year. And I think it's indicative of just what a great college experience we had there, and that that tight bond of teammates and that program pride that we all still have. And so, Grand Valley, it was just a wonderful experience. We were very successful during my time there, which also helps. Had a phenomenal coach in Deanne Scanlon. And believe it or not, she just recently retired a couple of years ago, and my assistant coach at the time took over. So the current coach at Grand Valley coached me in college as an assistant coach. So it's just an amazing program. And we were really fortunate too to have Tim Selgo as the athletic director. And I know that's a very well-known name in college athletics. And I believe my first year there was maybe his second year at Grand Valley. So we were able to kind of be a part of seeing, this sleeper of a Division II institution just blow up to, in my opinion, the top Division II program in terms of competitive success that's out there right now. I mean, if you look at facilities and what they're offering and, what they've invested in athletics. It's just a machine. And so had an amazing college experience, and you get to a point where you need to figure out what you're going to do in life. And, it was my junior year, and, I had to declare a major, and I was like, well, I just want to declare volleyball. Can I just not declare volleyball as a major? And they're like, well, unfortunately not, but you can go into coaching. And so that is what I ended up doing ultimately. I didn't know if I was going to go the route of athletic administration or coaching. And I got great advice from, at the time I was doing an internship at a sports marketing company downtown. And I asked, my boss this. I said, well, I don't know what to do. And he's like, here's the deal. He's like, you can always go from coaching to athletic administration, at some point. You can't go from athletic administration and then go back to coaching. And that piece of advice right there completely changed the trajectory of my life. And so I then decided, okay, I need to, get a coaching position. And so back then, I'm showing my age. And so back then you had to print your resume off. You had to get, that nice stock in the matching stock
Oh, yeah.
envelope, and
Oh,
print
yeah.
your resume off, put a little stamp on it, and mail it to places. And so that's what I did. I did that, and I applied for everything. I mean, I applied for stuff I was not even qualified for. I don't know what I was thinking. It was a waste of a stamp, but I applied everywhere, and did end up getting some interviews, and they'd fly me out there and whatnot. It was kind of an exciting time to kind of figure out what the next step is in your life. Eventually, I took an assistant coaching position at Emporia State, and then came back to Grand Valley. There was an opportunity back at Grand Valley, so I was an assistant there for a couple of years. And at the age of 24, I was like, you know what? I'm ready to be a head coach. Naturally, at the age of 24, everybody's ready to be a head coach. And so I started applying for head coaching jobs, and I can't believe it, but Arkansas Tech hired me. 24 years old. So that's what led me into my first head coaching position.
Well, again, I love to hear the stories, and I'm obviously older than you. I remember when I graduated from college, I knew I was going to be a coach. That first year, I sent out over 100 letters, typewritten, the resumes, the stamp,
Yes.
etc., for teaching and coaching jobs. Kids today, they just don't understand that. Um, Becoming a head coach, whether it's young, younger, or older, the expression, you don't know what you don't know. What was something that you found out as a new head coach that you didn't know?
I made a lot of mistakes. I probably made some really bad, just not knowing things, and I was pretty young. I was very close in age to the players. I mean, some of our redshirt seniors, I might have been a year older than, and I was taking over a program that was 4-25 the previous year. So it was a program that needed rebuilding. So that's a pretty tall task for a first year head coach who's 24 years old. I would say I tried to do a very I tried to be very strict and to really distance myself from the players. And I was very rigid in standards, which I think is at that time probably was good. But I think, players probably want more of a relationship with their coach. And since I was so young, I was really trying to be distant from them. So I think, and I do think this generation is different. So and this coaching generation is different, where they probably understand that a little better. But back then in 2004, 5, I was kind of that tough mentality, that rigid, tough. These are the rules. If you break them, you're done. You're out of here. I'm the coach. You're not. You don't. We don't talk. So I think over time, I probably evolved a lot more, and was in a better place in terms of player relationships. But I think from the start, that was probably something I should have done a better job at.
Oh, well, that's probably, well, it's not probably, that's not uncommon for a coach to do that. You coach
Mm-hmm.
like you coach the way that you were coached, and my
Mm-hmm.
coaches they were, hard asses. They were tough guys. So I guess that's the way you coach. It's certainly better than the other extreme where you're young and you try to become everybody's best friend,
Yeah,
and that's destined to go down
that's
in
a
flames.
disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at your coaching career, again, incredible success as a leader and building a program, as you said, you didn't walk into that
Mm-mm.
team that was ready to walk into the Final Four. Um, Looking back on those days, what are a couple things that just really stick out for you? This game or this player or this event? What can you share with our listeners about that time in your life?
Yeah, I think it was, that first class that I recruited, um, they to this day, I still have, they're still special to me, and it was a very successful class. So I knew that when I came in there, the first year is going to be rough, but the next year, and I do believe this at the Division II level, you are 2 years away, 2 to 3 years away from completely turning a program around with you when you get one, two, especially when you get two classes under you. But if you can get three, once you get three classes under you, you should be able to turn the ship around. And so I put a lot of time and effort recruiting that first class and even those second and third classes. And it was just, cool to see. And in year two, we had a pretty immediate turnaround. And so the first year we were we were like 13 and 17. Then when I got that first recruiting class in, we ended up being 25 and 12 and finishing second in the conference that year. So it was just kind of fun to see that immediate success and the immediate turnaround on that. And then as you go through the years, I think it's really important, especially at the Division II level, is to find the formula that works at your institution. And so it takes a couple of years to learn, the financial packaging, how to work your scholarships, how to balance your equivalencies. So that part of it, but also, uh, you know, the ability to evaluate talent is 50% of your success. And so I will say, did I love this actual sport of volleyball and could I sit and watch volleyball all night? Probably not, but I understood the program management aspect in the evaluation of talent and how to run a practice and how to keep people engaged. And so I think that is what gave us success. I had an eye for what could work at D2, how to be a good D2 program. Um, if you took me and plopped me down at USC, would I have the same success? No, because I would not be able to understand that formula, but I understood what worked at Arkansas Tech, and that's what made us successful.
And that's such a great point. It's not limiting yourself, it's knowing yourself. Hey, this is a
Mm-hmm.
good fit for me and my skill set. My skill set as a coach, as an AD, I like the smaller schools, more, for me, intimate relationships that you can build with players and staff and community. I was an assistant at a big school and we did very well, but I always felt more comfortable as a head coach at those
Mm-hmm.
smaller schools. Great, great stuff. Um, we're going to take another quick break. I know for our regular listeners, that's shocking, but we're visiting today with Kristy Beyer, the Director of Athletics at Rockhurst University. That's in Kansas City, Missouri. We're coming back with more, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper for their support. Your student athletes are on social media, so are a lot of their parents. And if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. It's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. Their team will have you creating world class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to thank our good friends at the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. Now, I didn't get my master's degree from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others. And it was a great experience. It's very affordable, completely online, just 20 months. And while you're earning your master's degree, you are also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get more information, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. And we want to thank our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, turn your school into a Huddle school.
Jake, I just heard the Huddle advertisement, and we're a Huddle institution as well, and I've just been very impressed with the services we've been able to receive from Huddle. We have some super duper package that all our sports take advantage of, and we also recently installed two cameras that self-operate on two different locations. So as an athletic director, I'm happy about the savings that we get and not having to have actual people operating those, and the product has been really good. So we've been very pleased with our Huddle relationship, and I know I now have a high school son of recruitable age, and so I always appreciate his Huddle experience and being able to get his highlights out as well.
I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you. Also, when I was an AD, again, I knew about Huddle as a football coach. I was concerned. Will our other coaches like it? And I just remember out getting so excited walking through our gym and seeing our volleyball coach or our basketball coaches with their cell phones programming the Huddle focus camera because they wanted to, record practice, and the same thing out on the
Mm-hmm.
fields. And I just this morning, I
Yes.
recorded a Tech Tuesday segment with an athletic director and a rep from Huddle. And the Huddle rep, Stephen Holder, and he's out in Nebraska, mentioned that high school students now, they can link with just about any college in the United States, and they can filter which colleges to have access to their video. They can get on that college's, mailing list for that sport, um,
Mm-hmm.
all through Huddle. And I know colleges for years have worked that other way
Yeah.
with Huddle. So what a
Mm-hmm.
great feature.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Definitely.
Well, let's go and jump back into your interview. For our listeners, we're visiting today with Kristy Beyer. She is currently the athletic director at Rockhurst University in Kansas City, Missouri. Prior to that, she had a long stint as an associate athletic director at a couple of schools. Kristy, can you share that part of your journey? You were a successful coach, and then all of a sudden, you're also, becoming an associate AD at a college.
Yeah. So, if anyone knows me, I'm definitely a planner. And, after my first year coaching, the senior women administrator position became open at Arkansas Tech. So I went to my athletic director and I said, "Oh, can I be the SWA?" I was, 25 years old. And it was almost like by default, because I don't think we had any other female full-time members in the athletic department. So I think he had to give it to me. And so I became the senior women's administrator, and then eventually, assistant athletic director, and then associate athletic director as I went through my 14 years there. But, I had a very supportive athletic director in Steve Mullins, and who also coached my husband in college in football. And he, just really supported my career. And I was one of those that wanted to do everything. Give me a task to do, put me on a committee. I want to go to that conference or that convention. And he supported all of that. And he knew my end goal was to be an athletic director. And I think it's really important to communicate your goals to your boss or your superiors. And it's wonderful when they support you in those endeavors.
Oh no, absolutely. Again, the position of athletic director, it's a full-time job, and you're an AD an associate AD, but you're
Mhm.
also coaching. What were some things that you did as a leader in two very demanding areas to make sure that the job was getting done? I guess from an organizational standpoint, what were some things that helped you that you can share with our listeners?
Mhm. Definitely at the time it was kind of before Outlook was super popular. And so I had a big calendar and I was obsessed with my calendar. I think just keeping, now Outlook runs my life. But before that, just keeping a really detailed calendar and always making sure that, I'm a big to-do list person. And even today I still have a paper to-do list. But making sure on your to-do list that you're prioritizing your tasks, because there's easy things to cross off, and then those are the stuff that stays on the to-do list. And so making sure that you're kind of triaging what's important on your to-do list. I knew that it was really important to me that we were super successful in volleyball. So I always made sure that that was a top priority for me. And then kind of secondary to that were all of my administrative duties. So I know we may have some listeners right now that are doing coaching and administration, at the same time. For me, what I did was prioritizing the coaching part of it, and the administrative stuff is, something I wanted to make sure I did well, but I wanted to make sure that I only took on what I could manage.
Yeah, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. For much of my career, I was a head football coach and the athletic
Hmm.
director. And during
Yeah,
football season, I mean, football is all consuming.
right.
I was blessed with some great assistant coaches. So on those occasions where I did get called away, maybe it was
Hmm.
because I was also the dean of students too, for
Yeah.
a discipline thing, or yeah, like we played our volleyball games on Thursdays. So we would have our varsity football practice. We would end, right around 5 o'clock. We stretch, we walk through, and hey, we're
Hmm.
gone. Let's go watch the volleyball game. And I'd go into the gym
Yep.
and things would be set up. So you alluded to the support that you had from your senior athletic administrator. Um, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more. How important
Hmm.
is it to have that support from above, and laterally, and also the people you work that you're in charge of below you?
Yeah, for sure. If you ascend to be an athletic director, having somebody there that is going to kind of guide you in that process, and also someone that is, I would say, confident enough in their role where they're not going to feel, like you're trying to, take their job, but they're there to kind of usher you through the process. But I think too, on the flip side, you as the prospective athletic director, definitely need to, be loyal and be receptive to feedback and, communicate that you're just wanting to learn the role. You're not there to try to, take somebody's job. You just want to learn from that person. So I think it's a two-way relationship. And I have the same thing at Emporia State too, which I know we'll get to later, but I had an amazing athletic director as well there that really helped me in my prospective AD journey. Now that I sit as an athletic director, I came into a great situation here at Rockhurst with very supportive staff that supported me right away, and just extremely hard workers. And so you really, I think it just comes down to loyalty on both sides. So loyalty from people that report to you, as well as you showing loyalty to the people that you report to.
Oh, no, absolutely. The loyalty, you cannot overemphasize the importance of
Hmm.
that. You mentioned Emporia State. You were the senior
Hmm.
woman administrator there for, I think it was about 4 or 5 years. How did that all come about? Because that's what led you eventually to Rockhurst.
Yeah, so I was at Emporia State, and I knew like, yeah, excuse me. So let me start. When I was at Arkansas Tech, I knew I had to get rid of the coaching part. So if I wanted to be an athletic director, I had to transition out. And so I needed another job before I became an athletic director. I wanted to focus on, being an associate AD. And so I actually got a phone call from Kent Weiser that says, "Hey, I have a deputy AD position open. Do you want to come, work here at Emporia State?" And what people, it's hard for people to understand in the college, even high school athletics world, anything regarding athletics, when you're a part of a dual income household, you really have to be strategic about, your employment decisions. And so what may be good for me may not be good for my husband and vice versa. So when I was able to take this Emporia State job, it was professionally good for both of us. So it was good for him, and in his new position, it was good for me. And dual income households, I know, come into play a lot as people, move through this college athletic world. But so I was able to go to Emporia State, and I was there for 4 years as the deputy AD in SWA, and had just an amazing experience. As I mentioned, athletic director Kent Weiser, who is a veteran in D2 athletics, was just the kindest man. And he, you know, going back to Arkansas Tech, Coach Mullins, Steve Mullins, the athletic director there, he was, former football coach, so kind of had that sort of mentality, but really loved his people. And then I went to Emporia State, and Kent Weiser was just, a very, very kind individual, and just always showed appreciation, always showed empathy. And, I really did learn a lot from him, because my toolbox might have been a little bit bare in those areas. And so, he really taught me a lot when it came to that. And, after COVID had hit, and I was really itching to be an athletic director. I went through the NCAA pathway program, and I'm looking around, no offense to some ADs out there, but I'm seeing some athletic directors, and I'm like, there's no way these people are athletic directors and I'm not at this point. And so I talked to my athletic director Kent, and COVID had hit, and he was still wanting to work longer after COVID. And so I was like, I understand, I support that, but I really need to start looking. And he was very supportive of that as well, and helped me and gave me advice during the process. And so I did the interview thing. So that was kind of a stressful time in my life where, you apply, you do the Zooms, sometimes you matriculate to the on-campus interview, the whole rigmarole with the on-campus interview. And so it's definitely a stressful, time. But I ended up getting a job offer at Rockhurst, and here I am 4 years later.
Boy, so many so many questions I want to ask. As you were sitting in that interview, maybe that final interview, because I know it's a series of steps for the
Yeah.
Rockhurst position. What can you look back at one event, one conversation where, looking back after you were offered the position, you can point to that time during the interview? That's where I got it. That's where I sold myself. That's where I knew that they knew I was the person for the job. Anything like that happen?
Actually, I kind of felt the opposite of all of that on the interview. You go through, and anyone that's been, on a campus interview, you do, different things you might do is meet with the coaches, meet with the staff, committee, president, different people on campus. And, Rockhurst is very different than any institution I've ever been at before, because I've always been at public four-year institutions in rural areas. And here I am interviewing for a private Jesuit Catholic institution that's located in downtown Kansas City. And so I actually, several times throughout the interview, I felt like, I don't know if I'm going to get that. I don't know if I'm going to get this job. I don't know if I'm going to get this job. But after I left campus and I had a one-on-one follow-up conversation, we did a Zoom with the vice president of student development, who was ultimately, helping with that final decision. We had a really good just one-on-one conversation, and I felt a lot better about the potential of me getting this position. So, sometimes you can think I've been in interviews and you think you've absolutely nailed it, and you really haven't. And then I've been on an interview, and then as I said, this Rockhurst interview, there was one time I walked out of a room and I was like, well, I'm not getting this. So you just never know what people are thinking about you.
No, that you're absolutely right. I could share some stories, but this isn't about me. This is about you. Um, we're going to take another break. Our guest today is Kristy Beyer. She shared her journey. She's about to share her current position, the director of athletics at Rockhurst University. Let's take that break, but we're coming back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also use them for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile and their customer service just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We'd like to say thank you to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, communication. Their student athlete eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. Go to homecampus.com for more information. That's it, homecampus.com. And we'd like to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. You're going to be very glad you did. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Kristy, you've taken us on your journey from high school, college athlete, college coach, and associate AD at a couple of schools, and now you're the director of athletics at Rockhurst University. You just hit campus. What are your first impressions? What were your first 90 days like? Kind of walk us through that experience. And then I really want to hear about some of the very cool, let's say, additions that you brought to the campus under your leadership.
Yeah, and I will say probably the first part, of my employment here, as I mentioned this before, I came from public 4 years in rural institutions, and then I'm now a private Jesuit Catholic athletic director, first AD job, in downtown Kansas City. So it's the whole experience is vastly, vastly different. And so I will, the first part, I almost had some sort of imposter syndrome. Not so much being an AD, but more just, I have no clue how this university works. But, I think you just kind of have to settle in. And I have an amazing deputy director of athletics in Michael Kaler, who's pretty much can handle any area of athletics. And he was super helpful in helping me acclimate to Rockhurst. The biggest thing to learn is the scholarship element. The institutions I was at were not enrollment-driven institutions. So here at Rockhurst, we're obviously private, and so net tuition revenue and roster management and building rosters is a huge part of the role of athletic directors to monitor that. So honestly, it probably took me a year to fully, maybe even longer than that, to really to fully grasp the concept. Now I feel like an expert on it, like I could give a presentation on it, but you really, have to spend a lot of time learning about the institution. Just little things you take for granted being somewhere so long, that when you come to a new place, learning who the people are, who to go to, what the process is. And I will say, being at a private institution versus public, there's a lot more leeway in the processes. Whereas when you're at a state institution, things are very, very structured and strict, and there's a lot of paperwork and oversight. Whereas in a private institution, we still do have that, but it's not, it's not as all encompassing as it is at a private institution. So, just kind of learning the first little bit is learning the processes, learning the people who that are within the department. We have a pretty large department because we have a lot of sports. And so, I did one-on-one meetings initially with everybody. And, anytime a new person comes in, it's, people want to tell you what they don't have or what they want or what we're lacking. So I went through that with everybody. And it's I should know that. It's good for me to know, what they want and what they need and what they envision. But those meetings did take a long time. But it was a good kind of introductory, and then just learning the people, learning who they are, how they operate, what they like, their styles. So that was a large part of my first part.
I was going to ask, what were some of the things that you did to, you know, uh, immerse yourself in the culture and get to know
Mhm.
the coaches as you were having those conversations? Any surprises, good or like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that, come out of meeting with the coaches?
No, and I mentioned this earlier. I was really blown away by how welcoming everybody was. Not that they wouldn't have been, but we've had, the previous athletic director was the athletic director and baseball coach, and then he just transitioned to being the baseball coach. And he was so supportive of me coming into this role. And he helped me a lot with historical information, and I would go to him with questions. And his support really meant a lot to me. Gary Burns, our baseball coach. We have a men's soccer coach that has been coaching 55 years here at Rockhurst. And so he is a legend in the soccer world and one of the longest tenured coaches at any level of any sport. And so, just learning about people and how they operate and their styles. But I will say everybody was very supportive and welcoming, and I know that's not always the case when a new athletic director comes in. And so I think it's just the culture here at Rockhurst to care for one another and be kind and always think the best of others.
Well, you've been on the job now for a while, just in looking at your bio on the website, you've been responsible for some significant, let's say improvements. That's my word. You might not want to use that, but can you share with some of our listeners, or share with our listeners, some of the things that you've been able to do since becoming the athletic director at Rockhurst?
Yeah, so it's a very difficult time in college athletics when I came in for a lot of different reasons. So I came in, COVID was still kind of going on, but it was the tail end of COVID. And then also, we were enrollment driven institution. And, we were at the time, our enrollment where it wasn't where we wanted it to be. And then, we're hitting the enrollment cliff. And so is money pouring in to do a bunch of stuff? No, it's not. So you had to kind of think outside the box of ways to improve the athletic department without a surplus of funds. And so, things that we were able to do, we went through a logo, a rebrand, which was much needed. And that was very exciting. And to be able to work with a company and create something that really fits who we are. That was just a fun process to go through. We signed a partnership with BSN Nike. Before I got here, people were just kind of doing their own thing. So it kind of took a minute for everybody to get on board with transitioning to one brand. But we were able to transition to Nike, and we've been able to reap the benefits of that. And just, having your athletic department tied to such a premier company in a way has been helpful with recruitment. we one of the biggest things we did is we started 7 new sports. In hindsight, that was a lot to bite off in 1 year, but we made the announcement. We added 6 in 1 year, and then the following year we added our seventh. And so of students, and then additional staffing. And, you may not really project all the other additional work and kind of the cascading things that happen when you have a bunch of new students and teams in your space. And so that was, it was definitely a learning experience, but we ended up hitting goals and really benefiting our institution and growing our athletic department as well. So it's been really good on the ad side of things. So those are kind of, some of the things that we're doing, and just kind of improving some of the physical spaces and where we can put up some branding and signage, and how to make things look nice and improve areas without, having to do a huge capital project. But we've got a lot of things coming in the works. We just completed a athletic facilities master plan in 2022 with Mammoth Sports, and our institution is coming into a strategic plan, and so we're hoping, we're getting some of those elements into the strategic plan. So I think there's a lot of really exciting things coming for athletics.
Oh gosh, absolutely. You talked about, I'm trying to decide where I want to go first, the rebranding and the starting, adding the additional sports. I'm going to go with the sports. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just quickly, I got to imagine that there were, meetings with current students, with admissions for prospective students that said, "Hey, we'd like to come to your school if you have this sport." Talks with coaches. How
Mm-hmm.
did that whole process play out? Was it, and these are my words, was it
Yeah.
great collaboration, or was it, rocks and knives, battling head to head?
No, it was actually just kind of us putting numbers into a plan and presenting it to our cabinet and then our board of trustees. Um, you know, I looked into some different things in terms of sports sponsorship, geography, costs, the financial side of things, reviewed our space. Um, but it wasn't this all encompassing, let's get everybody's opinion on it. I kind of just put it together and just moved it forward. Not everybody needs an opinion on it, kind of thing. But everyone was very supportive of it, and how it could possibly help our institution. So I know admissions was appreciative of the additional numbers. So now we just need to keep providing a strong student athlete experience with an influx of those numbers. And we have space issues. We're already a small landlocked campus, and then we have, additional staffing now and additional athletes. And so, hopefully with this athletic facilities master plan, we can address some of those issues.
Well, I just, as important as collaboration is, sometimes you just gotta make a decision. I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I just, you might have seen me chuckling. I just,
And I
no,
don't want to make it seem that nobody's opinion was important. Just sometimes when you're working on something, sometimes when you incorporate everybody's opinion, sometimes you might have too many opinions.
I don't know. Yeah, if you want to slow things down, form a committee. Yeah. So,
You can't say that in higher ed. Everybody does committees in higher ed.
oh, I know. Oh no, you got to have a task force before you have a committee. Uh, Kristy, this has just been great getting to know you. Wish we could spend some more time. Maybe we'll have to get you back on for another segment, but we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you've shared
Uh-huh.
your journey. You certainly know your way around an athletic department, but we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. Well, let's hear from Athletic Surveys. And when we return, we're going to see what Kristy Beyer puts into her new athletic director toolbox. We want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. My school, we use surveys for everything, for student athletes, for parents, for coaches, for teachers. And the information that would come back on these surveys was almost always over the top positive, but there were always those squeaky wheels, people that wanted to share a concern. And the survey allowed us to address their concerns. Usually they were small things before they turned into a big thing. But the overwhelming feedback we got was, like I said, positive. And having that positive feedback is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent or student athlete, or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. Athleticsurveys.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Kristy Beyer, longtime coach, longtime athletic director at the college level, currently the AD at Rockhurst University. That's in Kansas City, Missouri. She has an incredible background as an athlete, All-American athlete, as a coach, and now as an AD. But right now, I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 items in their toolbox. So, Kristy, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Yeah, I would say probably the first thing is confidence, going in there, not with a sense of arrogance, but, with the sense of that you belong there and you should be in that role, even if it is your first time as an athletic director. My husband kind of jokes around and he calls me the most confident, full of, what person ever. He could say I could be completely wrong about something, but I'll say it with just the best confidence ever. So you want to go in there, knowing that you belong in that role, but you also should listen to the people that are around you. As I mentioned, I have amazing people here at Rockhurst that have been here a really long time. And so it always is good, to get their perspective and historical perspective, before making informed decisions. So I would say confidence. The second thing is liability. And, this will protect you. It will protect your coaches and your institution. Every decision that I make, every conversation I have, every time I'm looking around campus, liability is in the forefront of my mind. What is our risk by doing this? If we use this process, what are we open to? If this student claims this, what steps do we need to take? Anything from health and safety to employment issues to student athlete issues, everything that you do in your operation, you should have liability, your institutional liability in the forefront of your mind. I take a lot of notes. I save every email. I take pictures. I might be to the extreme, but I never want to put my institution in a position where we could be on the news. I never want my name to be put on the news in any way. And a lot of times you never know, the smallest thing that may not even you think could be an issue ends up being a really big issue. So just being diligent in those processes. And I would say the last thing, I'm only going to give 3. I would say the last thing is to take situations head on. A lot of times people may, push things aside or, shy away from having difficult conversations or, maybe not want to call that parent back immediately, or if there's a student athlete issue, if you hear grumblings of something, just hoping it goes away. The best way is to take things head on. And I feel a lot of times when that happens and that communication happens, the problems are solved a lot quicker and in a lot better manner than if you just kind of leave things unattended. So I would just say not being afraid to take issues head on.
Boy, yeah, you probably noticed me scribbling all those ideas down. I love the focus. We don't hear it that often. I'm sure other EDs think about it, but having that liability equation in your mind, are we at risk? Are our kids at risk? Is our institution? And the communication one head on, you get that. It used to be you'd walk into your office and you'd see that red light blinking on your phone, and that you had that voice message. Oh, geez, who's this? Now it's that 16 paragraph email Maybe not so much at the college level, but at the high school level. Oh no,
Oh,
what's
no,
going
we
on?
get it. We get it
You
too.
get it too. Um,
No, we get it. Yeah.
yeah. And I had a boss that was just like you. He said, "Don't email them back because look at the timestamp on that. They sent it at 2:30 in the morning. Okay, don't email them. Call them and just say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I got your email. What's up?" And most of the time they've already vented in the email, so they're calmer. And just having that voice to voice conversation, taking it head
Uh-huh.
on. Great
Yep.
advice. Great advice. Kristy, we are definitely going to have to bring you back on the
Yeah,
podcast.
I would love that.
Wealth of information. In the meantime, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, find out more about how you direct your program, or maybe even find out more about the opportunities for their student athletes at Rockhurst, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Um, they can connect with me on LinkedIn, Kristy Buyer. They can connect with me on X at Coach K Buyer. Or feel free to send me an email, christy.buyer@rockhurst.edu.
All right. Well, Kristy, thanks again for sharing with our listeners. All the best as we move from fall into the winter seasons. And seriously, we are going to get you back on the podcast.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Jake.
For listeners, we appreciate you. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Education Lady Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day. We share stories and best practices for athletic directors, coaches, and leaders. So come back and join us again for the next episode of the Education Lady Podcast.